We're going to call this meeting to order in spite of that clock being about 4 minutes slow up there.
Okay.
This is our joint study session, October 20th, 2015, between the Sutter County Board of Supervisors and the Sutter County Planning Commission. There's a procedure for public participation here that we need to get out of the way. Members of the public will be allowed to address the board with respect to the items listed on the agenda only. The law requires that business not appearing on the agenda may not be discussed at a special meeting. If you wish to speak on any item appearing on the agenda, please fill out a speaker card, noting the number of the agenda item about which you wish to speak and present it to the board clerk. If you wish to speak under the public participation, please note that on the speaker card. When the matter is announced, please approach the speaker's rostrum and wait to be recognized by the chairman. Testimony should always begin with the speaker giving his or her name. We'll start this meeting by having a roll call.
Supervisor Solinger?
Here.
Supervisor Flores?
Here.
Supervisor Munger?
Here.
Supervisor Whitaker?
Here.
Supervisor Lay? Here. Commissioner Holt?
Here.
Commissioner Dozier?
Here.
Commissioner Bossy?
Here.
Commissioner Stillman? Here. Commissioner Ruffett?
Here.
Commissioner Sandberg?
Here. Would you please join me in pledging allegiance to our flag? Begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I guess on our agenda, it is time we pick up where we left off last time on a discussion of off-site advertising signs. Starting with you gentlemen down at the end of the table.
Okay. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our study session here with regard to the zoning code update. We do have two issues that we're starting off tonight that are carried over from our September 1st study session that we had. One of those is temporary off-site advertising signs in the agricultural district, and the other is trucking operations in yards. We also have 5 additional new issues that we will then get into after discussing the first two. So first off, just jumping back into temporary off-site advertising signs, during our discussion at our last study session, it was requested that staff do some research with regard to the 3 items that are listed in your staff report, and just going through that, staff has done that research. For item number 1, which had us research other counties such as Yolo, Sonoma, and Napa, we did research those counties to see what their requirements were with regard to temporary off-site advertising signs in agricultural districts. And in general, just to summarize, the counties that we researched do not allow for significant opportunities for off-site advertising signs for businesses in the agricultural districts. A few of counties include allowances for agricultural signs not located on the same parcel that's selling agricultural products, such as Yolo and Placer. And they also provide for temporary off-site signs for seasonal agricultural retail sales activities, such as annual sale of Christmas trees or pumpkins, such as Napa County. Exhibit A in your staff report contains sections from these other counties' sign ordinance regulations regarding off-site and agriculturally related signs. Regarding item number 2, which has to deal with the question regarding flashing changeable signs for advertising businesses and community events. In our research, we found that 4 of the counties researched prohibit advertising signs that basically consist of moving parts, flashing, blinking, animated, fluctuating, or intermittent light, including electronic message display signs. Now, 3 of the counties that we did research allow for some type of electronic reader, video board, and digital signs, or electronic changeable copy signs, or signs that use manual or automatic changeable copy. So while our findings from the counties researched regarding these types of signs is mixed, staff believes that electronic reader, video board, and other digital signs are more appropriately located along interstate freeways and in more urban areas. Many sign ordinances historically have prohibited electronic flashing and blinking signs as they are considered to be undesirable and potentially distracting. So it's staff's recommendation that the board and commission retain the proposed prohibition of these types of signs in the new zoning code. Now for item number 3, which has to do with, we talked about allowing a certain number, maximum number of temporary off-site advertising signs for a trial year basis here. At the last study session, we presented maps to the board and the commission that showed potential locations of 25, 50, and 100 signs that were evenly spaced along the state highways throughout the county. The discussion that followed cited concerns about allowing too many of these types of signs. There was a potential maximum allotment of 10 to 15 permits for these types of signs during the trial year, mentioned by a few board and commission members. So if these types of signs are still desired to be permitted, staff recommends that the board and commission make a recommendation to allow for a maximum number, whether it be 10, 15, or whatever appropriate number during the trial year. Staff's also included the criteria that the board and commission has previously seen with regard to size of these signs, maximum time, separation, all those type of standards, required deposit for the sign, so forth. So with that, I will turn it over to the board and commission for further discussion on temporary off-site advertising signs in the Ag District.
So Steve, through the chair, if we want to limit the number of signs, and we're talking Ag District, so I'm kind of assuming that this would be our southern entry point, northern entry point, and western. Because on the other side, we've got Yuba County and coming through the city limits, so that's probably not going to pertain. So we're looking at Highway 20 and 99 north and south. So if we're going to, if we're going to advertise an event that's temporary, seasonal, in my opinion, probably 3 per each corridor is more than sufficient if they're spaced out 1,000 feet apart for advertising something that's happening within our county or community. I would say 9 is a number that I'm proposing. That's up to everybody else.
Through the chair, if I could, Ron, my thought is if you do this trial year period, they got their foot in the door, and you're going to be hard pressed when they come back for renewal to say no. So I don't like it. That's just my thought.
I don't mind it for like special events, and there's something going on that's significant in our community, and we need to, advertise and generate some interest and get some people, draw some people to a particular event that's occurring here. It's a good way to advertise, only if it's temporary. I don't want to see signs out in ag districts year-round. That's not what I like to see.
Through the chair, John, for clarification, are you saying you don't like any signs, or what?
No, what I'm saying is the off-site advertising signs that you propose in the AG district, they should be located strategically throughout the county, and I think basically on major arterials and maybe state highways as you come into the county. But my concern still is that if you use this trial period, then the year is up, and they're going to have their foot in the door, and they're going to say to you, well, I spent this much money, I'd like to continue. You're going to be hard pressed then to say no. That's my thought.
Through the chair, sir. I understand what you're saying, I respect what you're saying, but I also understand when the applicant comes in and fills out and pays those fees, they're with the understanding that is a temporary sign. So no matter what they're paying for or how much they're paying, that's not a stipulation of what they're signing up for. So if we sit there and say, well, we put a lot of money in this sign, well, that's not my problem. My thing was that this was a temporary sign, temporary location, and it's only supposed to be for, 2 to 3 months.
That's a good point, Jim. I think that's a good point, yeah.
So,
So they know going in.
they know going in that it's only going to be up for 2 to 3 months, and so it's not a permanent structured sign, and so.
Through the chair. Chair.
Sir, ma'am, excuse me.
That's okay. I think you've done a lot of work on this project since the last time we met, and everything that we've asked for is in this wording, that I would totally go for 10. I'd like to see, my opinion is 10. You've got the 90 days in here. We've got the requirement of the $1,000 deposit, which was something that we raised. We had it down to nothing. And again, the whole temporary, I can see that this would be doable, and definitely the trial period, and then we can reevaluate that.
Through the chair, I think the consensus of the board last time was it not that it was right around 10 that the board felt comfortable with. I feel comfortable with that number also.
Mr. Chairman, since the majority of those signs will be probably south of O'Bannon Road, south of Lincoln Road, I can go along if that's the consensus of the board and the commission with 10, but I still have some issues with the number. But I'll go along with, I can go along with that in the fact that it is a 1-year trial period to see actually how many we do end up with. And it may be that we end up with 3 or 4 or 5. But what I don't want to see is Highway 99 and I-5 littered with signs. And I think keeping it to 10 is probably a workable number. And I do support having, like the signs that you showed, staff, I agree with Mrs. Selman. You did a great job here and have some pictures to show us, and I like those signs to designate certain ag areas or if there's specific events for Halloween or Christmas or whatever. And we're looking at some, wine tastings in the buttes and maybe, other spirits tasting down in South Sutter County. So I think those signs are good to direct people. So I would go with what staff outlines here with the bullet points with the 10 and the $1,000 deposit.
Any way you cut the pie, it would seem to me like a very expensive crapshoot. You kind of really have something in mind as to why you think your particular sign is going to be worth the investment. I don't think that this makes it necessarily easy to inundate Sutter County with signs. It would seem to me, and it's just, again, my opinion, that it's pretty constrictive, but acceptably restrictive, since we're trying to maintain an ag front here.
Okay.
Do you need a motion, Mr. Chairman? Staff, do you have direction?
I don't think we
I
necessarily.
think we're hearing the number
There's a
being 10,
consensus.
consensus of 10 for the trial year with these standards, okay?
Mr. Chairman, can I ask staff a question? What's the 90 days for? I mean, what's 90 days versus the year? What are you talking about?
Well, it's just in our earlier study session, just a number that was presented by
Oh, the 90 days
commission.
was the
Yes.
former number?
Yes.
Okay, all right.
Kind of discussed as being a reasonable amount of time.
Through the chair, I wanted to bring up a point. I remember Mr. Flores had brought up the monument sign similar to entering the city of Vacaville. And I don't know if we ever had any consensus on that. Or is that even a topic of discussion for today?
I think staff is going to check on that and see what we talked about it, but that's as far as it got to.
Yeah.
What, you guys going to check that out?
So they address it in the report.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think I read it in here.
Right, we checked with Solano County, and Solano County doesn't allow for any off-site billboard signs in the county. So more than likely, it's something within the city limits, probably, and that's kind of what we refer to. We tried to focus most of our research on counties, being similar to us, because there are some differences just typically in signage between cities and counties. So,
Through the chair, I also believe that those signs are probably more prevalent in the city when you come through and you see the big sign, say Cambridge College and stuff like that.
It's much closer to the city, of course.
I will note that as you come into Yuba City now from the south, you'll see the Welcome to Yuba City sign. Those types of signs are still allowed, and we're not planning to prohibit those. So there will be no change in the code with regard to that.
I agree.
Okay.
Unless someone else has something to add for the good of this particular discussion? Moving right along.
Okay.
Okay.
We do have a question in the back.
Okay.
Al Sawyer would like to.
Staff comment here, Al Sawyer from Development Services. The placement of these signs. I'd like to just recommend that they not be in the right-of-way, or that it be specified that way, and that sight distance from intersections be taken into account in the placement. Even on private property, they can obscure sight distance. And if we're authorizing the sign, then we might have some liability if there was a deficiency in that. So sight distance considerations and non-placement in the right.
Staff will work up a criteria with Al that will appear in the final version.
Great. Great. Thank you, Al. Thank you. Moving right along.
Okay, so that brings us to item B, which is trucking operations in yards, agricultural and general. Back on our September 1st study session, there were concerns that were expressed with regard to the safety at and near the Oswald Road Highway 99 intersection to both previous and recently approved trucking operations along Oswald Road and in the general vicinity. It was noted that a meeting had been scheduled with Caltrans prior to the holding of this study session to discuss safety issues at that intersection, and the results of that meeting were to be discussed here at tonight's meeting. Questions were raised as if there were any other areas within the county that would provide better infrastructure and allow for greater safety for trucking operations. And staff would note while there may be areas that do have better roadway infrastructure, such as possibly the intersection of State Highway 99 and Highway 113, there are still constraints, such as being located within a floodplain or having even a property owner who is willing to convert an existing productive agricultural operation into a truck yard use. Staff also during last study session clarified that development impact fees are currently only collected if a building is constructed on the industrially zoned property and not if trucks are simply just parked on the property. So based on this, staff is bringing this issue of trucking operations back to the board and commission for further discussion tonight.
Through the chair, Ron, staff, I'd like to ask a question. Is it proposed that general truck yards within the AG district, if appropriately located, are a matter of right, or does it require some sort of clearance, a zoning, administrative permit, or otherwise?
Right, yeah, general truck yards will require a use permit.
Oh, it will?
And there will be locational requirements. They have to be located on a designated, yeah, truck. What's the term, Al? Truck route? Okay. State truck route.
So either a state highway, so we're talking about 113, 99, 20, or on some type of a state route.
What are some other state routes in our county, other than those ones you mentioned?
I think we only have a couple in the county, and the one that I'm aware of is from the southern portion or a portion of railroad down to Oswald out to Highway 99. That's a state route. And Al, do we have any others?
Encinal, going off of 99 west.
So not too many of the county roads have been designated as a state route for the longer trucks. So
how do those get qualified to be state routes?
you go through an application process with the county as well as it's reviewed by Caltrans.
Those are pretty small country bumpkin roads.
I think the reason this was discussed, some of the decisions predate me and some of us on the board here, but the concern was the truck traffic specifically on Oswald Road, and there not being a signal light, and you have Chevron there, and the fact that there's approval for these, and then not enough resources generated at time to be be able to, for the county, to be able to maybe even cost share with Caltrans for a stoplight. I initiated the call with Caltrans, and the director came to the county, and who all was there, the staff, everyone was there.
Yeah, did you have any discussion with Caltrans on Oswald 99?
I was just finishing up, I was just saying, I initiated a meeting with Caltrans.
Oh, you did?
And they did. They came to the county, and I was acknowledging some of the staff that were there. I had a couple of other issues to discuss with them. Zach was there as well. And I think that they clearly understand the concerns of the county and the community, because I look, there's a few people in this room who have near-death experiences at that intersection and nearby. So the problem is they count by numbers, and I'll have staff maybe enumerate a little bit clearer than I can. They have the counts. If you do not meet the counts, if that does not warrant spending $1 million or whatever for a traffic light, and there are not enough resources or impact fees or whatever has been generated, and I'm not sure what they are, what they've been in the past, to be able to help offset the expenses for that traffic, that signal light. So right now, their position is that they would not support a traffic light there. But that doesn't mean that we in the community are going to get that up, because there seems to, and I don't know who monitors how many trucks are parked there or how many are allowed, but obviously it increases at certain times of the year. And that's not to say that trucking is not important, because I think it's important. It's just a matter of how we're going to provide for public safety for all of us who travel that road, whether you're in the city or the county. And Zach, you came in at that meeting as well. I don't know if you wanted to add anything, or if Tom wanted to add anything as well.
Well, as far as future truck yards are concerned, since it is subject to a use permit, the safety issue can be addressed. And I would assume conditions can be imposed or maybe even denied based on serious safety issues.
Yes.
Right, okay.
Mr. Sawyer.
I could just say from a technical engineering standpoint, and that's sort of what Caltrans presented to Supervisor LeBake at the meeting, there's actually 9 warrants that have to be considered before a signal can even move forward. So you got to do a little engineering study that has to be done by Caltrans. Sometimes we attempt to get the developer to do one if we think there's a possibility of a safety issue there.
Yeah.
And in the past, they have requested the board waive that requirement. I don't know if any board members recall, but there was actually a waiver of a traffic study for a trucking firm on Oswald in the past. So we haven't come back and asked for others, but we certainly can. Things like crash experience, road network, peak hour volume, 4-hour volume. So they look at what the traffic is on 99 and how many people are trying to get out of Oswald, east and west, at various peak hours when they do one of these traffic studies.
But as far as Barbara's concern is that we don't know how many trucks they have there. I don't know how we can revisit that on Legend or the other one on Oswald.
Is that a condition of their use permit?
No, those are permitted uses there, because what you have for like New Legend is you have industrially zoned property, and the other existing truck yards are all on industrially zoned properties. So you can't condition when they come in, if they need a rezone, can't condition the rezone. So it's a permitted use, and so they are allowed to operate and
So, excuse me, Mr. Chairman, let me understand this. So you cannot condition the use to limit it to 40 trucks. I'm just picking a number. You can't say no more than 40 trucks operational in and out.
not on a rezone application. On a use permit, if we were to have like one of these instances where somebody wanted to establish a general truck yard in the ag zone now, as we have it proposed, requiring a use permit, we could put a condition to limit that there, because it requires that use permit entitlement. But what we're dealing with on Oswald Road is we've got a lot of number of existing industrially zoned properties that people are coming in and establishing truck yards on, and it's permitted use, so.
So Barbara, on general plan amendments and rezones, which are considered legislative acts under law, those you cannot condition. Oftentimes, staff will, while working with the applicant, will try to get them to submit a design review application. If they have something that's being proposed that would allow for a design review application, that gives us the mechanism to be able to attach project conditions. Otherwise, if it's just, as Steve said, a straight rezone with a general plan amendment, then no, we cannot.
Okay, so if someone, just bear with me, Aaron. So if someone came in and applied for rezone, general plan amendment, on 20 acres adjacent to the north or south, that would be automatic with no condition. Is that what you're saying?
I would say that staff would try diligently to try to get a design review application submitted with the proposal, which would allow us to add project conditions. Because I don't want to, staff's goal is to provide the decision makers with the flexibility so that if we see a good project that we can mitigate impacts, well, then let's just add conditions to it to allow it to work. Sometimes just, if you have a straight general plan amendment rezone where you can't add any conditions, I think that might make the decision makers feel that our hands are tied. And we try not to have you put in that position.
But Doug, if I can, is there any other vehicle that you can think of whereby we can revisit the number of trucks, let's say, on that Legend operation? I can't think of any, but...
No, there's none. If they come back for some additional entitlement, depending upon what it is, maybe there would be an opportunity.
Yeah.
Through the chair, I'm not picking on Legend at all, but I recall in our packet that there was a condition on their use permit that they had it limited to 25 trucks.
Staff had, it was a rezone only on that project, and staff had asked them, well, how many trucks do you intend to have there?
Correct.
And that's the information that they conveyed to staff.
They put 25 limit.
Right. Yeah, it's not actually an actual condition, but that was just information that we were going on based on what the applicant told us.
Got it. Thank you.
I just have one more question. How, let's say, moving forward with this, I mean, what's done is done. Now we've got to deal with the public safety issue, okay? We're going to keep moving on that. We're going to keep trying. But moving forward, how do, I have my question about the general plan amendment answered, but in terms of being able to generate revenue to offset the impacts, like you would for any other type of development, for an example, to put towards some sort of a fund for a light, how would you propose we do that? And is there a mechanism in place?
There is not currently a mechanism in place. Once we wrap up the zoning code update, staff hopes to get back to our development impact fee update, and as part of that, and I think this was touched on at our last study session, our impact fees did include a component which is a impact fee for truck yards, assuming there are no buildings, and it's on a per acre basis. And so that would be a mechanism moving forward in which the board could collect revenue to ultimately offset some of these impacts.
One other suggestion, I'm finished. You might want to look at other counties also and see how they do it. If it's per acre, if it's per trailer, of course you can't be on county trailers. I realize that. But there are other ag communities that have truck yards, and it might be something like you did with the signs.
Mm-hmm.
So we have some comparison to what they do.
When we get back to the fee update, then yes, that's something that staff will do.
Okay, thank you.
Through the chair. One of the things that really struck me in our meeting with Caltrans that I did not know before is that corridor, that Oswald corridor is, and Al, Mr. Sawyer, did you help me in my recollection here and that our meeting with Caltrans They describe that Oswald corridor as a prescriptive rights corridor, in that any property owner up and down that corridor has prescriptive rights of ingress and egress on and off the highway. And which is very different than, say, Highway 70 in Yuba County, where that does not exist, and that has to do with how the highway's developed. So what we have down there is we have a zoning that allows for trucking, but we have no mechanism, nor does Caltrans, to restrict ingress and egress on and off the highway. And anyhow, it just struck me as a situation there with the light and a potential future development of a lot of trucking up and down there where we can't necessarily have an effect on the direction of trucks.
And that's my point is that, you know, obviously when projects do get approved on that corridor and along Oswald Road that have been approved throughout the past, and different entities, when projects do come before the planning commission, they have to be signed off, and obviously Caltrans is one of the people that have to sign off on those projects. Why wouldn't that trigger something and say, wait a minute, we've approved this, we have 25 trucks here, we got 50 trucks here, we got 75 over here. Why wouldn't there be something that triggers something in Caltrans estimation and saying, it might need a light at some point, you know, on Highway 99?
Well, Jim, even if the county could afford to fund traffic lights at that intersection, we still need Caltrans approval. I don't think we can go ahead and do that.
No, that's what I was stating though, is that there should be a mechanism in place when we approve projects and different entities have to, you know, sign off on those projects, that it should send up a red flag. And obviously Caltrans is saying that, you know, we've already approved, you know, so many projects here and signed off on them. And so there should be something in place that says, you know, we might need a traffic study, or we might need something else done to, you know, mitigate this project, or you know, might warrant a traffic light.
Well, that would be true for new applications that come in.
No,
that's true.
So over the last year and a half, there's been 2 applications that came before your commission and board, one on the north side of Oswald and one on the south. Each of those was circulated to Caltrans for comment. Staff, in fact, because of concerns at that particular intersection, went back on multiple occasions prior to it going to the board, asking again, you know, is there anything that, you know, take another look at it, and they came back to staff and said, you know, this intersection doesn't trigger the warrants for signalization.
Did trigger a warrant also with, I believe, in Supervisor Money's district on Acacia. Then,
But it happened.
but it still happened. I mean, and I don't know how many fatalities they had on that particular highway, but, you know, I don't want to get to that point. You know.
Correct.
Through the chair, can I ask a clarification point of staff? On the 1,000 some odd acres that we have on 99, and then some very minuscule amount going out towards Meridian of EC corridors, am I correct in the assumption that if somebody comes in, and we're talking about trucks, so let's talk about trucks, that if a trucking operation wanted to come into an EC corridor, that would trigger a use permit?
That would require, it's, no matter whether a use permit or not is required, it's going to trigger a design review. And it's a design review that has to be reviewed by the Planning Commission and ultimately approved by the Board of Supervisors. And that would allow us to do some access design and condition access how we felt was needed.
Great, thank you. About Highway 20.
Anywhere where there's an EC corridor now and they decided to put, and for argument's sake, say a truck stop, that would create a trigger for design review.
And we did, just for clarification, I'm just looking up here quickly, in the EC zone, as proposed in our draft new ordinance, in the EC zone for general truck yards, we do have a requirement for a use permit, so.
So that's going to trigger both environmental review as well as design review.
Thank you.
Okay.
I have a question on the Supervisor Whitaker brought up that lighting application, so how was that done? That's a good question. Like, what is the process?
Planning staff wasn't involved with that one, Al.
It met the accident warrant.
Lines are lost. It met the accident, okay. And this one doesn't met this one at this point, I think.
Not yet.
Not yet.
Not yet.
That's,
Anyone else have anything to add to this particular discussion? Or do we move on to keeping the law?
Mr. Chairman, I had one thing I wanted to go back on with regard to trucks. It's truck related. Our draft zoning code for ag trucks, we have small truck yards in the ag zone, 5 or fewer. At this point, the decision has been made to have a zoning clearance be the permitting mechanism for those small truck yards. And I thought it would be worthwhile to come back and recommend that even for the small truck yards, that we look at maybe upping that to a administrative permit. It's still going to be a in-house review, but it's an in-house review that we, similar to a use permit, we would take it in, circulate it out for comments, take the comments, add conditions, and then issue a notice to the adjoining property owners that would allow them the opportunity, if they feel aggrieved, to be able to appeal the decision to the Planning Commission, then ultimately the board. So whereas the zoning clearance, it's more of a, think of it as more really streamlined over-the-counter review. So I wanted to bring that up and see if you supported the concept of our new administrative permit being applied